Hi, everyone, this is the Encyclopedia Channel. The book interpreted by this program is called Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. The author of this book, Adam Grant, is a professor of organizational psychology at the Wharton School of Business and has won the most popular lecturer honor for 7 consecutive years. In addition, he was named one of the top 10 most influential management thinkers in the world. At the same time, he is also an excellent writer. He has written many works such as Deviant, with cumulative sales of more than 2 million copies. Years of teaching and research experience have led Adam Grant to discover that people do not seem to be as good at rethinking as he thought, and at the same time lack the tools for rethinking. Rethinking is not a new concept. To put it bluntly, it refers to learning to reflect. Only by doing self-reflection from time to time can you discover your own shortcomings, break your fixed thinking, and constantly improve yourself. This seems to be a truth that everyone understands. Why did the author write a book to explain it? And what factors prevent us from rethinking? What are some ways to rethink? How to express your views more reasonably and make them acceptable to the other party? After listening to this episode, you will understand. For example, in order to meet the expectations of their parents, some people have worked in a job they dislike for more than 10 years, locked their life navigation system on only one goal, and never stopped to rethink what they like, what they are suitable for, and what they want to get from work. In the end, they followed the seemingly correct direction but arrived at the wrong destination. For another example, studies have found that the more determined climbers are, the more likely they are to die during the expedition, because they are determined to reach the summit at all costs, forgetting that the best perseverance is actually clenching their teeth and choosing to turn around. To some extent, we are all mental old-fashioned people, and it is better to cling to old ideas than to wrestle with new ideas. So how can we break through the cage of thinking and rethink? That's what this book is about, and author Grant cites a plethora of examples to show us how people get stuck in old ideas and how to rethink them. In the following interpretations, we will add detailed psychological analysis to each case mentioned to help you better understand the concept of rethinking. In the first part, we start from our own perspective, through 3 typical cases, follow the author to explore the factors that hinder us from rethinking, and find ways to rethink. In the second part, let's see how to pass on this power to others and encourage more people to rethink through a wonderful debate competition. First part. First of all, in an era of rapid change, how does a successful entrepreneur lose opportunity after opportunity because he does not rethink and is finally abandoned by the times? Mike Lazaridis is the inventor, founder, and CEO of the BlackBerry mobile phone. He is a person who is very good at thinking and daring to create. He has always dreamed of changing the wireless communication industry one day, and he has indeed done it. In 1999, the BlackBerry was born. Its computer-like full keyboard, exclusive mail push service, and safe and reliable system, these features will make BlackBerry a leader in global smartphones for a long time to come. Whether it is a corporate executive or a Hollywood star, everyone wants to own a BlackBerry. As of the summer of 2009, BlackBerry accounted for nearly half of the smartphone market in the United States. However, just 5 years later, by 2014, BlackBerry's market share had plummeted to less than 1%. What did you go through? In 2007, Jobs launched the first-generation iPhone. He canceled the physical keyboard and added a full touch screen. At this time, Lazaridis did not feel that this was a threat. Facing the full touch screen, he thought, not everyone can type on glass. Then, in 2008, the global market began to change from the original 2G to 3G, and the internet and mobile phones began to collide with each other. The 2 major operating systems of Apple and Android launched open application stores, but Lazaridis still firmly believes that what people need is a mobile phone for sending and receiving work emails and making calls, not a mobile phone full of home entertainment applications. Then in 2010, Lazaridis gave up the instant messaging business and missed WhatsApp. In the eyes of Lazaridis, the BlackBerry has always been a productivity tool for typing and emailing with a keyboard. He only wants to serve a few million die-hard fans, but he does not know that this is equivalent to giving up a market of billions of people. Why is Lazaridis reluctant to rethink? In Grant's view, this is because the BlackBerry symbolizes Lazaridis' self-identity to a certain extent, and rethinking threatens his self-identity. Like so many firefighters who die in wildland fires, they could have thrown away their gear and bought themselves enough time to escape, but few thought about it. Why? Organizational psychologist Carl Weck explains, tools are the #1 reason firefighters are entrusted with fighting fires, so giving up tools creates a firefighter's existential crisis. Who am I without my tools? The same goes for Lazaridis. If a BlackBerry is no longer an email productivity tool, is it still a BlackBerry? If the BlackBerry changed, who was Mike Lazaridis who created it all? In fact, each of us instinctively wants to refer to and copy past successful experiences when doing things, which is understandable in itself. However, when the external environment changes rapidly, this method is very dangerous, because any advantage or asset, if it cannot be removed from time to time, will become a negative asset after a long time. How should we rethink in the face of a rapidly changing environment? The author believes that the key lies in separation. Detach who you were from who you are now, detach your perspective from who you are. What does that mean? First of all, to separate the past you from the present you is to dare to make mistakes and accept the unknown. Many people are afraid of making mistakes, and always hold the mentality that they would rather have no results than make problems. If we rethink the impact of making mistakes, we will find that another meaning of making mistakes is actually growth. Just like Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater Fund, said, if you look back at yourself in the past, you are not thinking, wow, I was so stupid a year ago, then you have not learned much in the past year. Therefore, we should enjoy the moment of making mistakes, because making mistakes gives us the opportunity to correct our existing ideas, which means that compared with before, there are fewer wrong ideas, and we are constantly iterating and upgrading ourselves. Second, separate your perspective from your identity, using your values to define identity, not your perspective. The author believes that people's self-identity is best to identify with values. Who you are should be defined by your values. You can be curious, you can be fair. Values will not change easily, so new ideas such as rethinking the function positioning of mobile phones will not easily pose a threat to self-identity as long as they conform to a person's values. On the contrary, you should not think that you are the spokesperson of certain opinions. For example, I am a person who opposes global warming, and I am a person who supports physical keyboards. These are unreliable, because opinions can change and be eliminated at any time. If you tie unstable views to self-worth, correspondingly, the self is also unstable, which is not conducive to rethinking. If the previous case is a negative teaching material for rethinking, then the following case is a classic textbook for rethinking. How did a presidential candidate with little hope of victory use his imposter syndrome as an advantage to finally beat his rivals? What can we learn from it? In psychology, there is a proper term called imposter syndrome, which refers to a tendency of self-denial and self-doubt, that is, although someone has achieved many achievements, he feels that he is an imposter and feels unworthy of these achievements. Simply put, it is not so confident. Hella Thomas is one such woman with imposter syndrome. Hella is an outstanding entrepreneur and one of the former presidential candidates of Iceland. On December 1, 2015, Hella unexpectedly received a phone call saying that someone had launched a petition online, hoping that she would run for the president of Iceland. Hella's first reaction was not excitement, but self-doubt. What she thought at the time was, how can I be president? From the perspective of others, Hella is absolutely qualified to participate in the presidential election. Although Hella has no political experience, she is a very good leader. She helped start universities and co-founded an investment firm in 2007. When the financial crisis swept the world in 2008, Iceland experienced the most serious financial crisis in human history, and Hella led his company through the difficulties with excellent leadership and decision-making ability. Even so, Hella hesitated for a long time, and finally decided to participate in the election under the urging and persuasion of her family and friends. There are more than 20 candidates participating in the election at the same time, and as an unknown candidate, Hella's campaign journey is bound to be full of challenges. One of the strong competitors is David's odd son. Davis and Hella are the complete opposite. If Hella is overly modest, then Davids is overconfident. Davis believes that he has considerable experience and knowledge and is fully qualified for the job of the president. In reality, he was identified by Time magazine as one of the 25 culprits responsible for the global financial crisis, and in order to force him to resign as central bank governor, Parliament even had to pass an unconventional law: any head of an institution must have at least a master's degree in economics. Let's take a look at the results of the election. Although Helle did not have a cover interview or a high election budget, on the election day, Helle still won more than 1/4 of the votes and ranked second. Helle did not win the presidency, but she crushed the overconfident Davids, who came in fourth with less than 14% of the vote. It was a remarkable achievement, and it gave her instant fame. The author Grant once invited Helle to his class to share. Helle reflected that the psychological motivation that supported her to the end was the imposter syndrome. During the campaign, she had a deeper understanding of self-doubt. Previously, Helle believed that self-doubt had weakened her, but now she reads self-doubt differently. She believes that doubt is not about questioning one's own ability, but means that tools and methods need to be improved. While other candidates were satisfied with regular media reports such as TV and newspapers, Helle's sense of uncertainty about the tools made her rethink how the campaign should proceed. She turned her focus to social media in a way that few other candidates would use. She responded to social media messages in person late at night and interacted live on Facebook. She also tried to use video shooting software to reach more young people. These actions resonated strongly with her voters and allowed her to win more votes. We don't have to be a person with imposter syndrome, constantly denying and doubting ourselves, but we can find the key to help us rethink from it, that is, what should we be confident about, what should we doubt, and how to find a balance between overconfidence and overhumility. The author believes that the balance point is confidently humble. Simply put, you can believe that you can achieve a certain goal in the future, while maintaining a humble attitude and questioning whether your current method is appropriate, as Helle did. Arrogance makes us blind to our own weaknesses. Humility is a mirror that helps us see our weaknesses. Confident humility is a corrective mirror that empowers us to overcome them. The previous two cases are the impact of one person's rethinking, so what if it is a group of people? Will the effect be better? Let's look at the last case, how a team full of conflicts and struggles used the power of rethinking to create an Oscar-winning animation. In 1995, Pixar launched its first full-length animated work, Toy Story. After its release, it swept the box office of $360 million worldwide, becoming the top box office in the United States that year. But the founder of the company still wanted to make a breakthrough and make some changes, so in 2000, he invited director Brad Bird to promote changes. Soon, Bird came up with an ambitious idea. He wanted to create a superhero movie that could realistically render tiny details such as explosions and human hair with next-generation animation technology. When he proposed this vision, Pixar's technical team members felt that it would take 10 years and $500 million to complete the production, which means that this idea is a bit unrealistic. However, Brad did not intend to give up. He created a challenger team and led this group of people to start animation creation. It's worth mentioning that the members of this team are not average. They are not animation gurus. Instead, they are people who the rest of the company thinks they don't fit in well, people who have a better way of doing things, but are angry and unwilling to use their abilities. The characteristic of these people is that they dare to express, dare to question, and even a little picky. For example, they will argue endlessly over details such as how far the character's hairline should recede. But fortunately, their goals are the same. They all want to achieve the ultimate in their works. They brainstorm, try their best to find cheap alternatives to expensive technologies, and find workarounds for difficult problems. In the end, the most complicated film in Pixar's history, The Incredibles, came out. It took 4 years and cost less than $100 million, but it earned more than $600 million at the box office and won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature Film. In retrospect, Brad doesn't seem to have done anything special other than to have a group of low agreeableness, people who were critical, skeptical, and challenging to work with. Generally speaking, we all hope that the members of the team will maintain harmony and avoid conflicts as much as possible, but Brad has done the opposite and strives to build a challenging network. It seems that it is not conducive to the development of the team, but it has produced very good results. Why is this? Because the absence of conflict does not mean harmony. sometimes it just means indifference. Come to think of it, is it really a good thing if every member is submissive to each other and says that's fine, no problem when asked for advice? The author believes that silence or not expressing opinions is actually disregarding the value of everyone's views and disrespecting our ability to put forward different opinions. A team with only one voice is not conducive to rethinking. Conversely, arguing with someone and having doubts about an opinion is not just disrespect, it's a sign of respect. This means that he values the other person's point of view enough, because if the other person's opinion is not important to him, he doesn't need to bother to refute it. One thing that needs to be reminded is that the author does not mean that conflicts are necessarily good, and that conflicts must be conducive to rethinking. The key is what type of conflict. Australian organizational psychologist Karen Eddy Yen proposes two types of conflict: relational conflict and task conflict. Relational conflict is a conflict of personal emotions full of friction and hostility. A conflict of the person is not the thing. The task conflict is about the conflict of ideas and opinions, and it is a conflict of things and not people. Although Brad's team is a group of low agreeableness people, there is always some friction and disputes, but their conflicts are task conflicts, not relationship conflicts. They don't hesitate to put forward various points of view, but they don't attack personally. When some conflicts of opinions are resolved, they can always adjust to the same direction and continue to work until they encounter new issues to argue again. However, navigating people with low agreeableness is not easy, and task conflict can turn into relationship conflict if you are not careful. How to block the possibility of conversion between the two? In fact, we can also see it in the case of Brad. Only when people feel accepted, supported, and trusted, conflict can stimulate creativity and the ability to rethink. This part has a lot of content, so let's summarize it. How can we break through the cage of thinking and rethink? First of all, don't give up rethinking in order to maintain your self-identity. Try to separate yourself from the past, from your point of view, and develop the habit of rethinking. Second, when self-doubting tendencies arise, see it as an opportunity to grow, to be confidently humbled by questioning your own solutions to current problems while having confidence in your ability to learn. Finally, don't be afraid of conflict, accept the challenge from your critics, and while relationship conflict is hard, task conflict can often help you rethink. The second part. After talking about how we can rethink ourselves, let's see how to encourage more people to rethink. This point is particularly important, and it is more closely related to our lives. For example, when we want others to accept our plan, to persuade parents not to buy things indiscriminately, and to warn children to play less with electronic products, do you always feel that it takes a long time, but you still can't convince the other party? At this time, you need to find a way to make the other party rethink. Let others accept your point of view and rethink. A typical event is debate. So, let's find a good way to make others think again through a wonderful debate. In February 2019, in San Francisco, United States, Harish, a top debater from the UK, and Deborah, an AI debater developed by IBM, had a wonderful debate on the topic: should preschool education be subsidized by the government? Deborah, representing the affirmative, believes that preschool education should be subsidized financially. Harish represented the opposition, arguing that preschool education should not be subsidized financially. Before the debate started, the audience almost overwhelmingly supported the affirmative, which is the position of the AI debater Deborah, with a support rate as high as 79%. However, after the debate ended, the support rate of AI debater Deborah dropped to 62%, while the support rate of human debater Harish rose from 13% to 30%, and finally won the debate. Harish persuaded some in the audience to reconsider their position. How did he do that? What can we learn from him about the art of debate? This is not the first time Deborah has debated with humans. Judging from her previous record, her performance is not inferior, and she is even much better than humans in some aspects. Her knowledge base consists of 400 million articles, mostly from authoritative newspapers and magazines, and she can use opinion detection engines to locate key arguments, scope issues, and weigh evidence. It is not surprising that Deborah spoke first as the affirmative party. She cited a lot of materials and explained the benefits of American preschool education from academic, social, and professional perspectives. For example, good preschool education can help children overcome disadvantages related to poverty and so on. In the face of Deborah's strong argument, Harish did not rush to express his views and raise objections. Instead, he reiterated the pair's agreement on poverty, affirmed the validity of the research Deborah cites, and said, "I don't think we're as far apart as we seem." Harish's move is instructive, so let's pause here for a moment. When we want to persuade the other party, many people will directly show their views. For example, if you want to persuade your friends to smoke less, you may say, "What's so good about smoking this cigarette? It's not good for your health, and everyone's lungs are damaged by smoking." There are reasons and evidence, but the other party may not necessarily agree with you. He will think, "What do you know? You don't even know why I smoke." Therefore, in order to make the other party rethink, we must rethink ourselves. To put it bluntly, it is to learn to actively listen and empathize. This does not mean that you agree with the other person's point of view, but that you are trying to understand the other person's feelings and thoughts. The advantage of this is that both parties can be brought to the same level for communication instead of competing. By acknowledging that we agree with the other party in some aspects and what we have learned from them, we not only show our own openness, but also reduce the defensiveness of the other party, prompting them to explore their views more deeply. In this way, the purpose of rethinking is achieved. Looking further down, Harish's next advantage comes from his disadvantage. He cannot grasp the massive amount of information like the AI debater Deborah, so facing the long list of reasons given by Deborah, Harish only gave 2 rebuttals. He argues that subsidizing preschool education does not address the harm caused by poverty. First, the government's money is limited, and many projects need assistance. American preschool education is not necessarily the top priority project that needs this money. Second, even if there are subsidies, preschool education cannot be completely free. In the end, children of the poor still cannot afford good preschool education classes. How can this money reduce poverty? Let's take a look at what Harish did right in this round of competition. When people negotiate with others, do they feel that the more reasons they have, the more they can tilt the balance in their favor? But the author tells us that on the contrary, real negotiators often give fewer reasons. The author once conducted an experiment with his colleagues, in order to make those alumni who had never donated money to the school give generously. He picked 2 different reasons for persuasion and tested their impact on donation rates. One reason is that the funds will benefit the school's students, faculty, and staff. Another reason is that the donation is an opportunity to make the donor feel good. It found that 6.5% of alumni ended up donating when only one of the reasons was given. But when those 2 reasons were put together, the donation rate dropped below 3%. The effect of one reason is more than twice that of 2 reasons combined. Why is this so? The authors explain that a single argument is like a conversation, while multiple arguments form an attack that creates resistance. This kind of situation is also very common in life. For example, a couple has a little unpleasantness. At first, they discuss the matter calmly and on a matter-of-fact basis, but if one of them starts to dig up old scores and lists a lot of evidence and reasons why the other party is wrong and that is wrong, the unhappiness will immediately escalate to a quarrel, and no one will accept the other. Too many reasons not only make people feel attacked and prevent people from rethinking, but also make it easier for the other party to find loopholes. Harish, the debater, said, "If there are too many points, you will dilute the strength of each point. If there are too many points, it will not be easy to explain. I don't know if the audience will accept each point. I don't think the audience will believe that they are all important enough. And the more important the topic is to people, the more important the quality of the reasons. This further strengthens their own views and beliefs, which is not conducive to rethinking. In fact, we rarely persuade others to change. Psychologists have long found that the person most likely to persuade people to change their minds is ourselves. How to do it? The answer is to ask questions and let them think for themselves. In the debate, Harish did not blindly use declarative sentences to refute or attack, he used a lot of questions. He first made his point that preschool education is good, but it doesn't mean it should be subsidized by the US government. Then he asks, why is that so? Then he asks, is preschool in America underserved and does it help the most disadvantaged? Why not? Why is American preschool education so expensive? Who are the real beneficiaries? Prompt the audience to think for themselves by asking them questions. Asking questions doesn't have to be about convincing them, it's about getting them to open up and accept that they can make mistakes and start a rethink cycle. As the author concludes, debate is not a tug-of-war game. As long as you pull hard on the rope, you can pull your opponent to your side. Debate is more like an unchoreographed dance where you need to coordinate with a partner whose steps are at a different pace. If you're too pushy, your partner will resist. If you can adjust your steps to match your partner's movements and get them to do the same, you're more likely to be in sync. Now, let's review and summarize. In the first part, we use 3 cases to discuss what prevents us from rethinking and how to gain the power to rethink. First, we learned in the case of BlackBerry founder Mike Lazaridis that people sometimes give up rethinking in order to preserve their identity. The key to change at this time is separation. Separating who you are from who you were in the past, accepting the unknown, and daring to make mistakes can free you from the shackles of your thinking and the baggage of your past. Let your perspective be detached from your identity. Use your values to define identity instead of your opinions, and use your stable self to fight against the times of rapid change. Second, in the case of former Icelandic presidential candidate Helle Thomas, we learned that not being more confident leads to rethinking, and that sometimes imposter syndrome, or self-doubt, can also be a source of motivation for rethinking. We need to find a balance point, neither overconfident nor overly humble, but confident and humble. To do this, we must have confidence in our own abilities, and at the same time admit that the tools we have may not be good. We must constantly improve our own tools. Finally, in the case of Pixar director Brad Bird, we know that the unsocial and critical nature of low agreeableness is not a shortcoming, but a booster for rethinking, and obedience and silence are obstacles that hinder rethinking. The absence of conflict does not mean harmony, sometimes it just means indifference. But at the same time, we must also grasp the degree of conflict, and don't let task conflict escalate into relationship conflict. In the second part, we use a wonderful human and machine debate to illustrate how to encourage more people to rethink. When persuading others to accept our point of view, first, don't rush, listen to the other party's ideas first, and strive to find common ground. Only when the other party puts down their defenses can they regain their desire to explore. In fact, rethinking is not complicated, it is not a burden. Just like every year we have a physical examination to check whether our physical condition has changed. We can do the same check with other important things in our lives, such as our personal goals, work status, way of thinking, and so on. Of course, it can also be applied to larger areas, such as teams, enterprises, and schools. Rethinking does not necessarily allow you to change your mind and see results immediately. It just allows you to take time to reflect on the status quo, not to stick to the rules, and to be brave enough to change. Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa once said, "The biggest difference between people is whether you really live for more than 10,000 days, or just live for one day, but repeat it more than 10,000 times." This is the end of this episode of the show. What do you think about it differently? Welcome to leave a message to discuss with everyone. Hey, if you like our channel, please subscribe us. Haha, remember to like it.